Hello everyone, it's Robin the Delta Crafter, and I want to thank you for joining me for another video on my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be using some alcohol inks to create this fun and textured Valentine's Day card. We're going to start off by choosing some alcohol inks from my alcohol ink stash. This is, I'm storing my alcohol inks in a storage tin from Holtz, and I really like this storage tin because it keeps my alcohol inks secure and safe so they're not spilling all over the place. I'm going to be using some craft plastic today. This is a pack that I purchased on Amazon. I'll be sure to link it below. And there are 25 12 by 12 sheets in this pack. This is a really economical way to have paper, non-porous paper to use for alcohol inks. Today we'll be using the colors Flamingo, Crimson, Fiesta, and Vineyard. These are some really pretty colors that will work well together. We'll also be using some Snowcap and Gilded to add a little bit more glitz and glam to this card. When you're using alcohol inks, you're going to need some sort of carrier or liquid to kind of get your inks to move around. You can use alcohol blending solution, or you can use 91% alcohol. I brought out both of them, but I ended up only using the alcohol. I also have my little Holtz blower tool that helps me move the alcohol and the inks around on the paper. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and wet down my paper in a smaller area, probably like a 1/4 of the paper, with the alcohol. And then I'm going to add some drops of the ink all around the paper in the areas that are wet with the alcohol. So I'll put down some drops of the Flamingo. Now I'm adding some Crimson, and then I'm going to come in with a couple of drops of Fiesta. I started with those three colors because I knew that that Vineyard color was very dark and deep and saturated. So I didn't think that I needed too much of that on my creation and inked up paper here. So I'm going to start out with the lighter colors and then gradually add in some of that Vineyard wherever I want to add that in. So I'm using my blower tool to just kind of move those inks around in that alcohol solution. And you can see here that I'm getting a beautiful result with doing this. I have learned through doing alcohol inks how to kind of hold my blower tool and to kind of get the effects that I'm looking for. I do have a video on my YouTube channel. I'll be sure to link it below on where I started using alcohol inks just a year ago, around about this time actually. And I just kind of turned the camera on and started filming my very first time using alcohol inks so that we can learn together. And again, I'll be sure to link that video below so you can check that one out. Because there are definitely some kind of techniques and things that you can use to get different effects. So you can see here, I've added a little bit more of the alcohol to kind of thin my inks out and spread them out a little bit more. How much alcohol or alcohol blended solution you apply is completely up to you. And that's one of the things that I like about using alcohol inks is there is no like controlling this. This process and this technique, this crafting medium really does have a mind of its own. So you put the colors down, you get to choose the colors, but where things go and how they respond and react, you can kind of push it in a certain way with the blower, but really it does have a mind of its own, and you get some really, really beautiful creations by releasing the process and allowing the alcohol inks to do what the alcohol inks do, which is one of the things I love about this process. So I've kind of got about a 4x6 area done, and now I think I'm ready to drop in a little bit of this Vineyard. So I'm going to add in a couple of drops of the Vineyard, and I'm going to put some alcohol on top of that to kind of thin it out and spread it out. Um, One of the other things that I like about using alcohol inks is that they dry rather quickly. Because these are alcohol based and you're using actual alcohol, the alcohol evaporates very quickly. So you don't have to wait a long time for your creation to dry, like you would say if you were using some paste or anything that was more that had a longer drying time. So I kind of felt like that vineyard area was a little bit intense, so I can just keep adding some alcohol on top of that and just thinning it out and spreading it out, and it'll go in a bunch of different places. So by now I've added some, you can see I can add some more color. I've got about half of my page done. And now I'm going to come in with some of the Gilded alcohol ink. This is like a gold ink. It's like a old world gold kind of like color. And so I'm going to add that on top of the inks I've already laid down. And then I'm also adding some alcohol into that Gilded to get it to spread out more. One of the reasons why you want to do a technique this way, where you put your color down first and then you come in with your gold or your metallic, is because you want the metallic to have a different movement than the ink did. You can put the metallics down with the ink and they'll all move together, but I wanted the metallics to have a little bit of a different movement than the inks did. So here you can see I've finished my entire 12 by 12 page, and this is going to give me some great mediums to use for not only today's card, but future cards as well. So I'm going to cut out as many hearts as I can using the Nesting Hearts Infinity dies from Hero Arts. And then I'm also going to be using the Love You Greetings stamp and die set from Simon Says Stamp to stamp my greeting and sentiment. So I'm going to take some of those heart-shaped dies and place them all around this alcohol inked panel and just kind of fit as many as I can on this panel. I'll end up cutting more than I'm going to use today, but again, I'll be using these alcohol inked hearts for many cards that I'm going to be making later on. Be sure to check me out on Instagram and Facebook to see those cards, as well as in the community tab here on YouTube. So I've got several of them down. Now I'm going to hold them in place using some Easy C tape to just secure my dies down to my inked up panel. I like using the Easy C tape with alcohol ink because it doesn't pull the alcohol ink up from the paper. So you can see here I use all of the different shapes, even the teeniest, tiniest little heart there. I put that one down and used it as well. So I've got a great collection of hearts to use and choose from for this card. Now we're going to go ahead and stamp that sentiment. Again, I've used the Love You Greetings stamp and die set from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm going to heat emboss this sentiment. Using my Rabbit Hole Designs powder tool, I'm going to put some powder down on my paper here. That will keep the embossing powder from sticking where I don't want it to be. I'm going to go real traditional with this sentiment, and it's just going to be the Happy Valentine's Day sentiment. Then I'm going to stamp that down using some VersaMark embossing ink. So close the door on my MISTI, grab the stamp, then I'm going to ink that stamp up with that VersaMark ink. This is a clear, sticky Watermark ink that will grab onto the embossing powder when I pour that over our paper. So I'm just inking up my stamp. I'm going to press the stamp down onto my paper. And then once that image is pressed onto the paper, I'm going to bring in a coffee filter to catch my excess embossing powder. I'm going to be using Distress embossing powder in the new Lumberjack Plaid. This is a beautiful, beautiful red. It came out during the holidays, but it's perfect for Valentine's Day as well as many other times throughout the year. So I'm going to sprinkle some of this over my inked up sentiment here. Again, using that coffee filter to catch my excess so I can funnel it back into my little jar. Then I'm going to bring in a dry paintbrush and kind of get off any excess or stray powder that I may see hanging out around my sentiment. Off camera, my heating tool has been heating up, and now I'm going to bring that in and hit the embossed sentiment from the back, kind of warm it up from the back, and then I'm going to bring that tool to the front of my paper and finish melting all of that embossing powder. Lumberjack Plaid is such a deep and beautiful, luxurious red, and it's going to add the right accent to this sentiment. Now that our sentiment has been heated up, we're going to bring in the coordinating dies, and we're going to die cut that sentiment out from the excess paper. Again, I'm going to use a piece of Easy C tape to hold my die in place while I run it through my die cutting machine. For the background, I decided to bring in the Beveled Diamond 3D embossing folder from Spellbinders. I wanted to keep the background white, but I didn't want it to be plain and flat. So using a 3D embossing folder is the perfect way to add a little bit of depth and dimension without adding color. I used my distress sprayer to spritz just a tiny bit of water onto my panel, and now I'm placing it into the 3D embossing folder. Spritzing a little bit of water allows the fibers in your paper to relax a little bit, and it gives you a great impression when you're using a 3D embossing folder. So I'm running that through my embossing machine, and now you can see the beautiful texture that I was able to get with that embossing folder. That is a great universal design on that folder, and that can be used in so many different ways. So now I'm kind of going to lay out some things to kind of figure out where I want everything to be. And once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and secure my sentiment and the blank die cut together using some Barely Arts glue. I'm going to bring in a acrylic block and lay that on top of the sentiment and let it all adhere together. And while that's going and doing that, I decided to pop up my heart a little bit with some foam tape. So I peeled out the backer paper from the foam tape, and now I'm going to bring in a little bit more of that Barely Arts glue, put it on the back of our sentiment, and secure that to our panel. While this card does not have like a whole lot of embellishments and things, various different things on it, it does have a lot of texture and a lot of aesthetic that draws your eye to the card. With that alcohol ink, the heat embossed sentiment, as well as the 3D embossing folder background, this card really does come together and make a beautiful statement. I decided to go ahead and pop up the background panel with some foam tape, and I'm applying that to a card base made from accent opaque 120-pound weight cardstock. And with that, this card is complete. I want to thank you for joining me for another video on my YouTube channel. All the products that I've used today will be listed and linked below, as well as on my coordinating blog post. If you haven't done so already, please join me on Instagram and Facebook at The Delta Crafter, and visit my website, thedeltacrafter.com. Until next time, everyone, enjoy!